Welcome to Cult Connections. Let's see what we are taking a sideways look at today. Hello everyone, welcome back. I am Ian, as always. Today I am joined by the man who stamps his hallmark of greatness all over the internet and various podcasts. It is Mr. Joe Higgins. How are you, Joe?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Thank you for having me back.
No, always a pleasure. We had a great time last time, and we have got a super concept for this one. They will have to work at it a bit. We are mostly talking Judge Dredd, who is I think he's possibly your favourite out of any sort of media sort of character, Joe.
Yeah, it's a subject very, very close to my heart. I don't really know why. I've grown up reading 2000 AD because my elder brother bought it. So, like, my earliest memories are reading this incredibly violent dystopian tale of future police. But the more you read into it, the more you see that there are these political allegories and real world issues in there, and the fact that Dredd has aged in real time. So he is now, I believe, somewhere in the realms of about 70 years old in the story, which is rare in any comics because they just permanently stay the same age. So he has gone through this entire crisis of faith and his belief in the law and if what he's doing is right. And it's I believe, to me, the only long form comic book that has that actual progression of a character from an idealistic youth to an embittered old man in real time. And it's always been one of those things that I've loved just because it is so quintessentially British as well.
It's I think for me now, I'm not hugely familiar with the comic book, their stories, as it were. But I think, I mean, we are similar ages there, Joe, and they're growing up. It was a character that you knew a lot of the references, the culture part of it, and the Dredd as a character is someone who's actually left quite a big footprint on certainly British culture and the sort of American culture as well. It's a character that's actually their American audience has also bought in there too as well.
Yeah, it's a strange thing because Dredd, when it was originally written, was supposed to be a lampoon of like the Dirty Harry, shoot first, never ask questions thing, which is the British way. That's not how we do things. We don't have guns and things like that. But Americans took it on board and identified with Dredd as a hero in the same way that they sort of do with the Punisher and things like that. It's not something to aspire to be. He is a bad man. He believes that what he's doing is for the right reasons, but he is a fascist in simple terms. And the more you find out about the history of the judges and how they came to be, you realise that it was never meant to be a long-term system. It was never meant. It was an emergency because civilization had crumbled. There was no law, and so this thing was in the judge system was invented as a temporary placeholder until they could figure something out. But as they gained more and more power, they become more and more corrupt, and the more the citizens relied on them to deal with their everyday lives, basically, because in Megacity 1, vastly overpopulated, I think employment is at like 3% because everything's been automated. So citizens are bored and they just do stuff for the sake of doing stuff. They try to introduce democracy, and everyone votes against it because they don't want to push back against the norm. And this is where Dredd has his crisis of confidence and things like that. But with when they shipped to America, they were sort of repackaged as there is another character that's very similar that came off the back of it, and I've got it in that cupboard over there. I can't think of the name for but he is a very similar ultra-violent, like killer of superheroes sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
And they've sort of tried to repackage Dredd as that, but if you buy, I think it's the IDW sort of prints of it, it's not the same. They take out bits of stuff that make it very, very, very British, but very, very political in a lot of ways. I guess I know that doesn't play well with American audience, because why would they care about, Margaret Thatcher? Or, I mean, in recent stories, there's been like Nigel Farage parodies and things. There's always been these little subtle jokes in there. Dredd lives in Rowdy Yates' block. That's because he's based on Clint Eastwood. They've always put little nods and winks in there if you're paying attention. Which again, I think stuff like doesn't translate to American audiences. I may be wrong.
I think as well though, but there's a British this sort of tradition of actually, taking the piss out of American their sort of culture, and lamb sort of pooning it, or actually a lot of the time, dare I say it, and excuse me there, listeners, because I know most of you actually are American. However, we, and I'm not saying me, but we as in, Britain as a whole, we almost look our noses down at you. There's a lot of American, this sort of society, and we are like, what on earth is this? What on earth's going on?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And not in a horrible way at all. It's just that, again, it's this thing. We are used to how we have things, and other people, other things, this light kind of xenophobia is I mean, it plays in, there is in Dredd, when there is the issue of mutants, that is basically, we don't want people who are different living next door to us, which is, it's a classic racism trope, but it's dealt with in a way, and it's always making Dredd think, well, is what he's doing right? Because he's blindly always obeyed the word of law.
Yeah.
But is it in Judge Dredd where he's like, the law can change? I can't remember. But there's one of them, in one of the films, he has a bit where he's like, the law is there to protect us, but it isn't the be all and end all.
Yeah.
It might be in something that it might be in one of the books I've been reading.
I reckon you maybe just made that up in your head there, Joe, but who knows? So before we get started on the films themselves, I just wanted to touch on some of the cultural influences, as it were. So I think sort of Dredd, we all know, even if we've never read any of the comics, even if we haven't seen any of the films, we know what he looks like.
It's an iconic look that Carlos Esquera came up with, and then has been refined by different artists over the years. But he said it was designed to be this faceless unit of authority. That's why you never see the judges. You rarely see the judges with their helmets off, because they're just supposed to be the system, essentially.
Yeah.
But it is an iconic look that both films go in different directions with.
They do. Yeah.
But it's the helmet with the visor. It's the big eagle on the shoulder, and like it's impractical for fighting crime. But it is an iconic image, and it's I guess you could show it to anyone and they would know who it was, even if they've never read any of it.
Yeah.
Or seen the films. Or it is just, like the Hulk. Or it is just someone that is instantly recognizable.
Yeah, definitely. Also, that their line that everybody knows, I am the law. That is the
Anthrax song, yes.
Well, it is. I'd like to say, cultural influences. Now, it is Anthrax. We know that. I did a little bit of research here. So if you like a bit of their sort of metal, and hardcore sort of metal, and Anthrax is certainly the way to go. If you like a bit of ska, Madness actually did a song about it under the title "The Fink Brothers." I couldn't actually track that down. I don't know what it sounds like.
I imagine it sounds like Madness.
It'll
They've
be
got.
quite, yeah, they're sort of nutty, as it were. If you like a bit of late 80s indie Grebo type, their sort of noise, there is the Screaming Blue, their Messiahs, and they had a song called the Mega City One on one of their albums. It's actually quite
I've
good
never heard it. I
tune.
must dig that. Holding that one down,
Yeah. However, my favourite, I have to admit this one. My very favourite one is Sheffield's finest synth pop. They're pioneers, and that is the Human League, and their song "I Am the Law." That's a great tune.
The cultural influence that it has had is for something that was thought to be a one issue and done sort of thing. The fact that it kept going and it resonated with people, and there are songs, and there is like an extended universe. There's audio dramas. There's all this stuff.
Yeah,
is fantastic.
Yeah, and of course, I think, and we had a little bit of a laugh about this just before this sort of Christmas time. The children's 1970s cozy favourite, the Mr. Ben, has also crossed over into the Judge Dredd universe. So,
I mean, I would if they ever came back and did more Mr. Ben, I would very much like to see him, go through the door and end up on the mean streets of Mega City One. I don't think he'd last very long before he ended up at Recyc.
I don't think it would be much of a happy ending, really, would it? So,
I did rewatch all them. They're surprisingly fun cartoons.
Yeah,
I forgot there was only like 12 of them made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I genuinely, they must have just repeated them forever.
Yeah,
when I
they
was
did
a child.
basically. Round and round in a big circle. So
yeah. But they're all on Prime.
But obviously, so the Dredd is such a big character. He is an icon, and obviously Hollywood would come their calling, and he got his first big screen adaptation in 1995 with Judge Dredd. And in this one, so the Judge Dredd is convicted of a crime he did not commit and must face his murderous counterpart. I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to sort of dive too much into it. And at first glance, there should be a lot going for this film. So they're directed by Danny the Cannon, who's actually best known for his their TV work, but their their sort of Gotham, their Pennywise.
Yeah. This was only like the third or fourth thing he directed.
Yeah.
Which is a hell of a weight on your shoulders for a big Hollywood summer blockbuster film, which is what this was pitched as.
Yeah, I mean to a man
whose previous work was a Bjork video.
I mean, a big film, a big budget. He himself, though, was a Dredd fan. This was a passion sort of project for him. He really wanted to make it, and we'll get to some of that later on. I think it really didn't work out how he wanted it to. But
I think it's that giraffe is a horse designed by a committee thing. I think a lot of people had their hand in this, pulling it in different directions, because there is the seed of goodness in there, but it was just never allowed to grow, as analogies go.
But I mean, a big their cast, obviously Sylvester their Stallone as the Dredd, Armand Assante as the Rico, the Diane Lane as a Hershey, who are all established characters. Obviously, there is Dredd,
Oh yes, yeah.
so this is all part of the this sort of canon, as it were.
Yep, all the stuff in there is roughly correct, but
Yeah,
they move it around
yeah.
slightly.
A bit of a wobble with Rob Schneider, I think, is the comedy character.
Was he on his ups at this point, Rob Schneider? I don't know how he got this gig, but
Oh.
also, does it need a comedy character?
I was reading about it. Apparently, the first choice was Joe the Pesci, and that just made me think, oh, good Lord, no.
I mean,
Uh,
that I'd pay money to see that
yeah,
with him in that role.
but it would be a bit of a car crash, I think. But
I mean, Rob Schneider is basically sort of. If he wasn't there, you wouldn't miss him.
yeah,
His only role in it is to provide Dredd with a narrative. He had, if he wasn't there, you wouldn't miss him. It's the only reason he's there is to make Dredd question whether the law is infallible. That's his whole role, and to crack wise. But even the jokes are flat and
he's not particularly funny.
no,
No.
not his fault. But the problem with it is that it is a Judge Dredd film, as in that it's set in Mega City, Judge Dredd's in it, but it's a Sylvester Stallone vehicle.
Yeah.
It's an action film with Sylvester Stallone in it, cosplaying as Dredd, because he's cracking wise all the way through it, and he's trying to get these catchphrases in there. I knew you'd say that. What's that? That's not what he's famous. Dredd is famously sort of monosyllabic, a man of few words but louder actions.
Yeah.
And I mean, did Armando Sant get the job because he looks a bit like Sylvester Stallone, and they're supposed to play brothers?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So they are both Italian American, the actors. So yeah, it was almost like, yeah, they are quite similar, and they can sound like each other, and yeah.
Because I mean, Amanda Sant is chewing the scenery in this. He looks like he's having a whale of a time being evil, and like the story's fine. It feeds into actual real world, like the actual lore of Judge Dredd with the James Project, which wasn't called that, but it's just a bit messed up with the timeline. But it's just the Sylvester Stallone as Dredd thing really falls apart. They take him from being this unflinching arbiter of law and make him a murder machine, which is not true. Which is not what Dredd is. But like, is it the scene where someone has parking fines and he explodes their car? And I was like, Dredd wouldn't do that because that's endangering other people. Like, a judge's job is to protect.
Yeah.
And it felt like they were doing bits all the way through it.
Yeah. I know we're going to go on and we're going to sort of criticise it a bit more. I do want to just talk about the positives of the film.
There is a lot to love in there.
Yeah, there is. I think visually, for a start, it looks fantastic.
They nailed the look of Mega City 1 perfectly in this sort of grimy, Blade Runner-esque sort of universe, but with that sort of sheen of it being like you get to see the tops of the towers where the rich people live, and then as Fergie's cab descends to where like the normal people live, it becomes this absolute hellscape because that's that society. The rich stay at the top and the poor stay at the bottom. And they get the look of the comics. I mean, when it pans away at the end and you get this city skyline, it looks like it was drawn by Carlos Esquera. It is that sort of weirdly organic, textured buildings that are in the thing that they've got, like the flying. I mean, the flying police bikes can get in the bin because that's absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
But they do have, like the mega highways and the skeds and stuff like that, and it looks beautiful.
I think as well, it's it's sort of packed throughout there, the film. Like I was, so when the opening scene sort of comes up, or the opening uh, there's sort of couple of scenes, and there's big visuals and there's model work and there's a scale, and I was like, wow, this looks great. And then it doesn't really stop after that, So we do get a few more scenes, which are maybe in sort of rooms or in the courtrooms and then
Yeah,
their
we get inside
apartments and things like
the big
that.
hall of justice, and
Yeah.
then we get like I mean, even the stuff when they're out in the cursed earth in the desert looks Mad Maxy post-apocalypse,
Yeah.
which is what this area of America is. And it's the set design and everything is beautiful. I can't fault it. It's the slightly annoying bit is when they're fighting in the Statue of Liberty, is that there should be a massive judge statue stood over it, because that's the joke.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the judges have overshadowed Liberty entirely. But again, it's a sense of scale.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a bit visual film throughout, so it's like there isn't just two or three bits of model work stretched out. It's like every fifth day scene, it's like, whoa, there's something else going on, visually. It's
Again, they spent money on it to make it. I'm not sure whether or not they intended this to be part of a, to kickstart a series of films, but I mean, they could have done with it, because they did so well with the set design. I'm not a massive fan of the costume design, which I believe was done by was it Gucci?
I believe so. Yeah, you're one of the
No,
big fashion.
Versace.
Yeah,
It was Versace, and it is like sort of like the comic books, but blown up to ridiculous proportions, and it would just be impractical to to do that. But if they've gone fully in on the world, then this has to fit in with it. So it works, but it just irks me slightly.
It feels a little bit too sort of colourful as well in their places. A bit too bright, maybe. It could have a bit more grime about it.
Yeah, because they're street judges, they're covered
Yeah.
in, that they're getting into fist fights, they're dealing with perps. I'm thinking they should have. It would be more practical for that, and also the fact that some of the judges are wearing judges' outfits, and some of them are wearing like these weird half outfits, which I don't know why, because that's never explained. Because that's let's get my nerd glasses out. That's only for cadets that should be doing that. But Hershey is a fully fledged judge, so why hasn't she got the eagle? Again, just little things like that that just take me out of the immersion of it.
I think for me, sort of tone wise, it doesn't get it right. There is too much comedy for me. And you can obviously have some sort of comedy or the right sort of tone for the comedy, but it's a bit too
Dredd has
brash. Yeah.
loads of comedy stories, but
Uh-huh.
this is very 1990s action film, wacky sidekick. Let's do, it doesn't work,
Yeah.
which is sad. Another beautiful thing, though, I will say, apart from like the band part of it, the score is delicious. It's a beautiful, beautiful score over this. Not the Cure part and and the Cocteau Twins and stuff like that, but the Silvestri score over it
I
is I really
think
like it. I think it
right,
fits
okay.
in
I
a big.
actually don't like it, Joe.
That's fine.
But it's a bit too busy for me. The score, I would have liked it to have been sort of toned down a bit, but it
It
works
does.
for
This is it. If you're doing you're going full into this thing of everything's big and bold and explosions, you need this sort of bombastic score. It does feel a bit like he's put everything in that he's got, like every single trick to get this through. But in the grand scheme of this huge world with huge characters, you need everything needs to be ramped up to 11.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, but I don't like it, but that's just me. They're the little love bits at the end where she gives him a kiss.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Genuinely annoyed me.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's the bit she says earlier on. She's just like, "I've got friends. And she's like, as a judge, you don't have friends. You don't have family. You stay in. I mean, Dredd has a niece or something in the books, or some weird, convoluted reasons for that. But they live solitary lives. They're monks essentially. They live this. That's not nomadic. What's the word I'm looking for?
Hermit-like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they live this isolated life of they're only not even friends with each other because that's beaten out of you at an early age. I think 8, I think you start judge training. And so by the time you're 15, 16, you sort of hate each other. I mean, it's you have Dredd and Rico's thing that's never really fed into. It's like, oh, he's my brother, I judged him. It's never explained why.
Uh-huh.
Which you don't need, really.
Yeah.
But it would have added more layers to Rico's character than him just being ooga booga, I'm evil for the sake of being. I'm the polar opposite of Dredd.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who is portrayed as the hero in this, and that's not what Dredd is. Dredd is an anti-hero. He is a bad man.
So, casting-wise, is this Stallone the right choice?
They picked him because of the chin, didn't they?
Yeah.
That's what they wanted. They wanted someone with a pronounced chin. No, having rewatched this recently, it has grown on me because you could tell they were trying, but I think there was too many notes given to them by studios saying you need to do this and this because you've got it's you were always going to see his face, and that's one of the big things in the books is that we've never seen Dredd's face because you're not meant to.
Yeah.
He's took his helmet off a couple of times, but it's always shown off panel or whatever. But you're not going to let Sylvester Stallone's face be hidden for 90 minutes. So within the first 10 minutes, he's took that off, and then he doesn't really put it back on for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
Nothing against Sylvester Stallone. I know he had, I think, Bell's palsy when he was younger, so he has got that slurred speech. But when he's doing the "I am the law" thing, it's not how I envisioned it in my head, reading it from the books. And he's trying, bless him. Like, apparently he really hates this film.
Yeah.
Which I can understand, but again, I don't think he knew what the character was, so he just portrayed it as generic action hero like RoboCop or Commando or any of those sort of things. He's just shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
But then apparently he was one of the ones who kept wanting their sort of changes and like
So
the director's original vision was very different.
No, because I can see that because he I mean at this point it was just off the back of Cliffhanger.
Yeah,
I think so. This was like his second go at it after Rocky and all that. So he still had pulling power. He still had studio power, and I can say he clearly went, "Oh, just let him do whatever he wants." And that's why we get these. I reckon that's why we get the comedy bits in, and that's why we get like the kissing at the end.
Yeah,
because it has to be beginning, middle, end film. You have to have these things. Dredd doesn't learn anything. He doesn't go on a journey. He's still the same jerk at the end he was at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, because you think, oh, and she's like, oh, what's it like to have feelings? He hasn't. He's still going to go out dispensing justice willy-nilly because that's all he knows. He hasn't learned anything, which I'm fine with because, it's only 90 minutes. There's a lot of, you've got 45 years of backstory to get in there if you were going to do all that. But it just falls flat. It just feels like a real cop-out at the end where he just comes out and the guy's like, oh, we saw it all. And he, right, okay. He murdered a load of other judges.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not allowed. But that's all forgiven because of who. No.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So, and I do remember critically, it was there. It wasn't a success. It wasn't received well. I didn't like it at the time. I like bits of it now. I appreciate a lot of the work in it. However,
If it's
luckily,
on TV, I
yeah,
will watch it,
uh-huh.
but I won't go out of my way.
However, luckily for us, we did get a second sort of bite at a second chance. So we are going to move on to probably um, a more a more well received version. So Dredd did come back in the singularly named Dredd in the 2012. And in this one, the Dredd teams up with their rookie to stop a gang who is taking over a high-rise building and is dealing in the drug slow mo. So directed by Pete, the Travis, who made the one that sticks out for me by him is actually Vantage, their point. So yeah, so they're directed by Pete, the Travis, who made the Vantage Point, and that's a film that actually sticks out to me. I like that one. Written by Alex and the Garland, who did the 28 Days Later. And in this one, we have Carl Urban, Olivia Thirlby, and Lena Headley as Mama. I think this is and even if you don't know Dredd that well, this one, it is a better version. It seems more more sort of fitting. Yeah.
It nails the tone perfectly. It's Carl Urban as ultra violent Dredd taking Anderson out on her first day. Antics happen; they have to fight their way to the top of a building. But I think you can count his actual lines on one hand. Like, he is very blunt and to the point all the way through it. Even when they're being set upon, he's like, "Well, you're still under assessment," which is such a Dredd thing to do. Is that, like, I'm doing this, I'm doing it my way. But my only gripe with this film is Mega City 1 itself. It just looks like Johannesburg. Which is, it's fine. It's where it was filmed. And I guess that's because they've gone for a more realistic approach to it. It's not got like this high sci-fi concept that the Sylvester Stallone one has. This is more if Dredd was in the real world with real things happening. So, like, there's no flying cars. There's none of that. It's very much Mega City 1 is a dump. It's gritty. It's dirty. It's horrible. And that's what Mega City 1 is. But you need that extra bit in there. It looks too realistic, if that makes sense.
I find it interesting. I know that a lot of people compare this to the Raid,
The Raid.
I think just for the setting, so it's in a high rise. It's one guy or two people against a whole host of bad guys, basically. And it is. I suppose it is similar in some ways, but what I did kind of enjoy in this. And this, but also see a little bit of in our next film, which takes us in a totally different place as well. But in the high rise, actually, the nice bits are at the bottom. So there's the shopping sort of mall part of it. I mean, they're not hugely nice, but they're okay.
The theory is that you would never need to leave your block. People were born and raised and died all without ever leaving because everything you needed was in this building, and outside was dangerous. I mean, inside the building's dangerous, as it turns out, as well. But yeah, you have. I mean, they obviously couldn't show it because this film didn't have a massive budget, so they reused a lot of the sets and just repainted them. But that's why. But on every 10 floors or so, you would have these shops, and there is a theatre. There is like a cinema in there that we briefly see posters for and things like that. So it's supposed to be an entire town, but vertical rather than horizontal. But they're horrible. The blocks themselves. There are no nice blocks. It's places to put people. It's just to get them out of the way.
I did enjoy it. I did like the shopping centre feel of the of the opening, as it were.
I believe that was filmed
I believe so.
in
Yeah,
London somewhere.
some sort of tip.
Abandoned. But they do get, again, this has loads of little Easter eggs in there as well. Alex Garland has said that he's a massive 2000 AD fan. 28 days later, he said, is a 2000 AD story. It could very easily have been. A lot of people have gone on to do stuff influenced by, especially like the Future Shocks, the little short stories that they have in there that are just like these little Twilight Zone episodes. But when he wrote this, he was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it justice, and it's justice, and it's going to be a proper film, and it hits the nail on the head. We get everything that we need from there. We get Dredd being a badass. We get all these things. We get a baddie, and we get I watch this film at least sort of once a month, just because it brings me so much joy that they put so much. You can tell it's made by people who care about the product, which you don't get with the Sylvester Stallone one. That feels like we've got this character, let's insert him into a film. Whereas with this, the world feels like it lives and breathes. There's graffiti that makes sense in there. There's little bits, like at the opening bit in the shopping centre, the fat guy on the floor has a little wheel that you rest your belly on. It's a belly wheel. It's little stuff like that pays off for you, paying attention to it, but also is like, I know the people who have done this have done it as a passion thing, as something that they care deeply about. The problem with it is that it didn't do well at the cinema.
No.
So we're never going to get a sequel. That's the sad thing about it. Also, shooting it in 3D, I feel, was a mistake. Because
it's a gimmick, yeah. It is a gimmick.
It's a gimmick, isn't it?
I think for me, it portrays a world where you get a real sense of people hanging on. Life is hard. There's not much sort of pleasure. You can see why people take their drugs and things like that, because you need to kind of get away from the awfulness of it.
I mean, as what's the bent judge? It's a meat grinder. That's all it is. Mega City 1 is just a holding pattern for the human race until they figure out what to do. And you live, you die, you get recycled and fed back into the population. That's when he calls for recycle. They take the bodies away and they use them for, like they would horses or whatever. They use them for glue and for meat and all this sort of stuff, because they can't grow their own. So it's a good metaphor, and they know that it's a horrible, bleak world that they live in.
I think the smaller scale, actually, the only giving you glimpses of the world, only telling a very straightforward and simple, self-contained story works in the film's favour. So it's not trying to have such a big canvas that you lose what the actual point of sort of Dredd is. And I think we get that in the first film. It's too big.
Yeah, it's a big Hollywood summer blockbuster, So you've got to get all this boombastic stuff in, and we've got to get these cannibal mutants in there, and we've got to get Mean Machine in there, and we've got to look at these things. It feels very much like I feel with like the new Star Wars and things like that, where they go, look at this, we've put this in for you, the fans, and I'm like, you don't have to flap it in my face. You
Yeah.
can just put it in the background, and I'll look at it and go, oh, look at that, that's nice, isn't it? Which is what I feel they did with the Sylvester Stallone one. It's like, look, here's Fargo, here's this, here's. And you don't need to do that. But if you're trying to introduce people into a concept, I guess you have to throw as much stuff at them as possible.
But do you though? That's no.
That's not how I would do it.
Yeah.
Because that overloads you. And
well, this film
just
doesn't
get
really
flustered.
do it. It doesn't. You're not getting a huge backstory for Dredd. It's
Nope.
it's not serving in there to that. It's fairly much sort of Dredd on his own. He does have his partner, but it's not. Oh, this is though as corny as it sounds, and I know it's part of the comics, but for the first film, oh well, he is Dredd's brother, and he is Dredd's auntie, and yeah, it's like no, we don't need that. That's not,
Yes.
but
I get, but that's why I thought, were they trying to build it into a franchise? And because that's why there's sowing all the seeds of that with this. Whereas I believe with Dredd there was plans for a sequel, but it just didn't do well enough. But they were going to expand more into the universe and the lore of Dredd, which would have been tremendous. Like, I would have been a very happy man. I mean, I've bought this on. I went to the cinema to see it several times. I've bought it on DVD, on Blu-ray, on Steelbook, like just because it feels like if I give them enough money, they'll make another one for me.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get another one. That's the trouble.
No, which is a crying shame because Carl Urban is tremendous in this. He like, allegedly would refuse to take the helmets off between scenes and just sort of embodied the character all the way through. Like he just was Dredd. I mean, again, he's 2000 AD fan as well. He said it was a great honor to be asked to do it, and he understood the briefing of what Dredd is. That he is this just fascist bully boy essentially. But I mean, they changed. They still keep the helmets and stuff, but they changed the design so it is more real world. It is like a flak vest, and it's a lot more trimmed down in the shoulder pads and stuff. It's still recognizable as Dredd because you'd recognize that especially the helmet and gun combination anywhere. But they just, I think it was Jock, the artist who sent in spec artwork saying if you ever do a film, I've made it so it's more realistic, and they were like, do you want to come in and do like designs for us? There's a book over there about it, and it's the stuff he drew is basically what goes in because they went, yeah, we like this. They had the sort of the permission of John Wagner and stuff to use the character more wisely than in the other one, and it literally plays out like a 8-9 episode of the comic book. You've got a beginning, middle, end. Dredd doesn't really learn anything, but that's sort of the point. I said my only grievance with it at the end is where he passes Anderson, which he wouldn't do. She didn't pass.
Yeah,
she lost a gun. So he wouldn't have done that, but again, it's nitpicking. But it would have led into the second thing, and I believe the second film was going to deal with Judge Death and all of that stuff, and open it up to more of the bizarre Judge Dredd stuff
and
that they have
ease
out
it
there.
in slowly and then go big instead of starting out.
I said
ridiculously bigger,
with all of it. But you've got fantastic set pieces in there. The miniguns firing through is brilliant. Lena Headey is great as an evil.
Mm,
Is she evil? Is it
yeah.
not just doing what you need to do to survive? It raises a lot of moral questions in there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
It is. It's a great
that's
film.
my all-time favorite
It is.
film,
It's really well
sadly,
done.
just because it plays off a character that I've loved all my life, and they've done it justice.
And
Justice. And
but
his eye on the law is a lot. Here we
unfortunately,
go.
we did not get a sequel. That did not happen. There was rumours of a TV series. I've heard that bandied about.
Yep, it's still in the pipeline, I believe. Rebellion, the company that now own 2000 AD, spent a huge amount of money building this state-of-the-art studio. I believe scripts have been written. I believe it is coming. They're just trying to get
Right.
someone on board, Netflix or
Yeah.
Amazon, something like that, as a distribution side of it. Carl Urban said he'd be fine coming back, but I don't think it needs that. I think it would be. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's Tales from Mega City 1. So you could just do these stories because there's so much weird stuff that goes on in Mega City 1, or have it about a rookie judge, and Dredd is just pops in and out every so often as a tertiary character. There's a lot you could do with this world, and I I like the raid as well, but I also hate it because it killed off the possibility of any more of this, because more people went to see that,
Yeah,
because
it is. Yeah.
it's a good film. It's but it is the same film, and
Yeah.
it is just all set pieces that all the way through, some ridiculous nonsense. It will happen. I have
I'm
faith
sure
that
we.
we will
Yeah.
get this series one day, just because the amount of money Rebellion have spent building this
Let's hope
studio.
so. Now, as loyal their listeners do know, we like to talk three things every episode. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a third version of their Dredd to talk about. Um, but we bandied a few different things about there, Joe, didn't we? So we were looking at ways to do this.
Aye.
And we looked at some of the more obvious, sort of modern films, or even like a very similar one for the Stallone was obviously the sort of Demolition Man, so that made sense.
Yeah.
Some more modern ones,
I think
Equilibrium, yeah,
Equilibrium has a very fascistic
yeah,
dystopian future police force. Yeah.
um, I mean, even say sort of RoboCop or something like that would absolutely fit in with the tone of those things.
Yeah, well,
Well, yeah,
we
because
know
it's
why,
yeah.
don't we? Because RoboCop ripped off Judge Dredd massively. If you look at the early prototype for the RoboCop helmet, it is just Dredd's helmet. They just, we can't do that
um,
because yeah,
so we bandied it about. We had a good think about it. So what we decided to do was actually to go back before their Dread, not too far back, but we are going back to the 1970s with a their sort of futuristic, their sort of dystopian world. Um, some might say a utopian world in some respects, as we'll get to those aspects shortly. Um, but one that has a very iconic law force in it, so that the lawmen in this really stand out. So we're talking 1976's Logan's Run, which is a film that I really enjoyed going back to and there watching. But so a police officer in a future city uncovers the deadly secret behind the society that worships youth, basically. So they're directed by Michael Anderson, who's probably best known for Around the World in 80 Days. They're back in the 1950s. A very seasoned director. and they're based on the novel by William F. Logan. Now, for you, Joe, and I'm thinking of the first time that I watched this film. Now, I'm thinking, I remember, I'm sure it was a Sunday afternoon or evening. It was on BBC One. I was quite young. And this film must have been edited to bits because when I went back and watched it, I was like, "Oh, that's a bit saucy. This one, is it not?"
There's a lot of boobies and bottoms in this. Yes.
Yeah,
So to have it on a Sunday afternoon on BBC One, it must have been about 45 minutes long,
it
if
was.
that.
It was. I remember this film was being about an hour and a half, and there must have been at least sort of 20 minutes cut out of it. So
The whole bit in that nightclub escape bit, yeah,
yeah, yeah, that was all gone. Yeah,
they just arrive at the. It would have been. I remember watching this. It was Christmas because it used to put. They still do, but they used to do more back after Christmas, like 11 o'clock on BBC One. They would just put like a random film
yeah.
on, and I must have been about 12, something like that. And I was like, "Oh, what's this? I've heard of Logan's Run, but." And I put it on, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I get the point of this." And then I was like, "Oh, this is it's surprisingly good." And still, I mean, having rewatched it recently, it holds up tremendously.
It,
The whole thing about it is it it feels, even though it was filmed in 1976, however it was, it feels timeless because it's set in either the future or the past. So everything is everything it could. I know what I mean, but it's hard to say. It has this futuristic quality to it,
yeah.
but everything looks knackered as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, it does actually. Yeah, there's there's something about a 1970s made this sort of futuristic film that just captures the sort of imagination. A the sort of dystopian one as well. So a dystopian Earth. Um, I just love that. But one of the great things I love about it, and also this kind of goes into sort of Dredd, but the use of the location. So Logan's Run uses great locations. It's got shopping malls and civic buildings, and from the 60s and 70s, and they always look so weirdly retro futuristic.
Yeah, it's like Milton Keynes. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it is actually. Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely spot on
it's
there.
the white curved, like egg shaped everything. It has this. Yeah, it is this quasi futuristic setting, but it looks like not, if that makes sense. It's like I said, the set design in it is beautiful. The little weird cars, the egg cars,
Yeah,
again, tremendous uses. They serve no purpose. That screen comes up, doesn't come all the way up. So what's it there for? But it's aesthetically pleasing,
yeah,
and like the carousel arena is basically a big amphitheater, but it's done in this way that makes it look, yeah, futuristic, but not,
yeah,
but like brutalistic in a way. It's again, all this must have been filmed in a shopping centre as well.
yeah. I think it was in there, Texas. So it was these buildings in there, Texas, which are sadly now no longer there. They were all pulled down, but big malls and like I say,
Hmm.
civic buildings and all those kind of places there that they used. Um, the central concept for me, though, I think is really sort of fascinating. So this is a domed utopian the city. Basically, it seems like quite a nice place to live. Everyone's young. There's lots of sex, lots of other stuff going on. You don't really have to
Yeah.
work. You just have a good sort of time. With each other. They're sort of beautiful. Everyone's very white. I noticed there's not much the diversity going on
Yeah,
in that city.
maybe they're in a different dome.
Maybe, yeah, haha, yeah.
Yeah,
But the very dark side of it is that when you reach 30, you have to be renewed. However, renewal actually means death. So,
yes. At Carousel,
yeah,
which is the trippiest sequence of anything in this film. Um, yeah, you have this gem in your hand, and it changes color as you get older.
yeah,
And when it goes black, you have to go to this ceremony where you get exploded with lasers.
yeah,
It would appear,
yeah.
and everyone goes mental for it. Like they love it. I guess there's not a lot to do with that. You get tired of shagging after a bit, wouldn't you?
Well, you're meant to be reborn, apparently. This is what.
Well,
This.
I was reading about this,
Uh-huh.
and apparently the thing at the top they keep cutting to, if you got all the way up and touched that, it would regenerate your crystal, and you would get another 30 years.
Uh-huh.
But no one's
No
ever
one
done
ever
it.
gets to the top, no.
But again, if this has been happening for hundreds of years, however, surely you'd be like, well, now's my time to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the start of the film, they're looking at children, I think, and they claim that those are previous runners who have been previous what did they call them?
Yeah, previous people from the
the hunters. They have a
the
specific name,
Sandmen.
don't they? Sandmen.
Yeah.
They believe it's previous Sandmen who have been reborn, and I'm like, that's strange. But there again, there is no pregnancy either.
Yeah.
So the computer system takes care of it all somehow. It's never explained. You don't need to know.
No.
But it is a horrific version of the future. In the book, it's 21.
Mm-hmm.
Die
Yeah,
of.
which is even scarier, I think.
Yeah. But you can choose to run if you don't want to live.
Yeah.
If you don't want to die in a bizarre Cirque du Soleil style death, you can try and escape from this city to Sanctuary, which is and then you're hunted down by Sandmen who just execute you summarily on the spot, which ties into sort of Dredd's instant justice world. But again, we find out that it all isn't what it seems. There is no reborn. You're just dead. It's for the sake of, it's very Soylent Greeny in that respect.
It is, yeah.
It's just to get you out of the way and make space for the next.
Yeah, exactly.
There's only finite resources to go around.
It's sort of population they control. Yeah, so like you say, so the Michael York is their Logan, and the Jenny Agutter is their sort of Jessica go on the run. So and they are pursued by Richard Day Jordan, who was also a Sandman. So Michael York himself is a Sandman. He was sort of charged by the city. I was going to say elders, but you don't really see them, do you? So the computer says, "Look, we want you to go and find sanctuary, but once you do that, you'll get your lives back."
Yeah, they jip him out of his crystals, don't they?
Yeah,
and he has to then team up with Jenny Agutter to find this thing. He tries to get his face changed, which is a horrific scene, like where them lasers don't like that. And we get Farrah Fawcett in what is possibly her first acting gig, and she's terrible at it. She's genuinely just bad. But they escape out, and they find out that the world outside is not a poisonous death land. It's just other people live there. They meet the only good actor in this film, Peter Ustinov, doing tremendous chewing the scenery work again.
Yeah.
And there is no sanctuary. It's not it's not an oasis in the desert. No. It's not a perfect thing. It's just you can live. His character is called Old Man. Yeah. He's never given a name.
Yeah, I think he's forgotten what his name is. He hasn't seen anyone else for so long
since his parents died. Yeah. And he has, he's living in the ruins of the old world. I think he's in like a courthouse, isn't he, or something?
Is he not in the White House?
Yes, because there's all the pictures of the portraits of the presidents there, isn't there? They make a joke about Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
Topical. But then and he's like, well, come back with us and we can show people that you don't have to die unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And then he goes back in. The computer can't handle. It feels like a bit of a cop-out ending. The computer can't handle the fact that Sanctuary isn't a real this utopia outside
Yeah.
of the dome, and just explodes.
Uh-huh.
And everyone's like, "Oh, what do we do now?" And they all come out blinking into the sun, and like start touching Peter Ustinov because they've never seen a man this old before. And it ends, and you're like, "I wanted more. I wanted to find out what happened afterwards."
Well, that's
How
the...
they try to rebuild society,
Yeah.
but they've got no discernible talents.
Well, no, because all they know about's actually shagging and, taking drugs and things. So, yeah.
So you're ain't gonna be putting a roof on with that, are you? You're not gonna be doing guttering because you're not gonna know how. I reckon. See, I think it would half of them would go back, just like with the Dredd thing about democracy. People don't want new stuff. They want what they've always done, what they've always known. I'm prepared to kill myself at 30, provided I don't have to suffer through life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the sometimes it's harder to press against the grain than it is to go with the flow. God, so many metaphors.
I think for me, I really like it as a film. It's quite a terrifying world that's they sort of created here. I remember it scared me as a child, not in like a terrified way, but in that sort of chilling way that these great films do. Always left me with a sort of they're a chilling feeling. Some very interesting points. I don't know if you'd noticed this one there, Joe, but the score. Um, Jerry Goldsmith did the score, and
Yes.
it's a great score, but it changes as it goes along. So the sequences within the dome are mostly the electronic, the sort of music,
Yeah.
and then when they get outside, then the orchestra comes in, and it's a lot more
Yeah.
natural. And I really liked that. I thought that was a really sort of clever way to...
It plays into the two very different halves of the film together.
Yeah.
And it until you actually sort of sit down and listen to it, oh yeah, it adds an extra. It makes the outside world seem more beautiful and natural, and the inside world more alien and robotic. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, it is this horrifying world, but they're all okay with it, which makes it more terrifying. It's because they're just like, yeah, okay, we'll do what we want,
Yeah.
and then at 30, we just cark it.
Yeah. But they don't know any different. That's the thing. They don't. There's no...
This is it.
Yeah. As a vision of the future, and even in the 70s, and we've mentioned it's quite saucy. Jenny Agutter basically wears a
Yeah.
bit of sort of cloth. There's not much to it.
Has a swim and just takes all the clothes off in
Yeah.
front of a robot at one point.
This is not the Railway Children by any stretch of the imagination.
No. No.
But it suggests that homosexuality is actually part of their society. It's an accepted part of it. It's okay to they be like that. I think that's actually quite a positive message.
He has that bit, doesn't he, where he's like scrolling through what I'm assuming is essentially like their internet thing.
Yeah.
And a guy appears and he's like, nah, not tonight. And I'm like, all right, this is quite progressive.
Yeah. It is. And then he asks the Jenny Agutter character, actually, "Oh, do you not like men?"
And she goes, no, it's not that. And he's like, oh, okay, that's fine. I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
Like, and she's like, no, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, why did you go into the teleport machine thing then?
Yeah.
And she was like, I really don't know.
Oh.
And it, again, apart from the dying thing, it sounds like a pretty, actually, no, it's boring, isn't it? Because no one's got jobs.
No.
They just seem to lounge about all day.
They just wander around in this massive shopping centre that they're living. But
It's boring, isn't it?
well, it is a bit boring.
I guess you'd welcome death at 30 at that point. Yeah.
Possibly. Michael York, he's a little bit too old, to be honest. I think he
He's
was
not.
33 when they made this.
Yeah, I was going to say he's not. He's not playing. He's supposed to be 27,
I
isn't
think
he? I
so,
think it is. I
yeah.
think he says
Yeah.
he's got 3 more
Yeah.
years. Yeah, he is a bit old in it. I'm not sure how many other films he'd been in at this point, but
Oh, he was a
his
big star
acting
by
is
this time, yeah. So,
really, because his
yeah.
acting in this is quite terrible.
He'd been in.
Unless he thought this was just going to be like a piece of trash throwaway film, so don't really bother.
No, I think no, he was up for it by all counts. He'd done they're the Musketeers, so they're the Three Musketeers.
No.
I believe with Richard Lester by this point. They were big, huge hits, and actually really good fun films as well. But yeah, so this one certainly is it, and it maybe goes against what we think of as being a Michael York film. It is very different for him.
Yeah,
So, um,
like I said it's a very good but very strange film.
it is, yeah. Now, Joe. One thing that I wanted to mention. Now, the last time you were on, we spoke about the Futurama, and we spoke about our favourite their robots as part of that. Now, the robot in this box
Box.
feels very Futurama like.
Yeah, I love Box because he's trying, isn't he? Bless him.
Yeah,
But he's just got it wrong. So yeah, he has a feel of like Bender with a fridge magnet on him,
yeah,
sort of like it's that sort of thing. Because he's supposed to harvest like fish and stuff from the sea,
yeah.
freeze it, and bring it back for them to eat.
Uh-huh.
But somewhere along the line, he's confused this as kill all humans, and he freezes them.
Yeah, so
And he's got like this rogues gallery of frozen nudie people.
well, so basically they ran out of so they ran out of fish, but the people who are running, if they get as far as where Box is, he's basically he's going to kill them and he's going to freeze them and so it's
because it's not an easy journey out of the book. There's a lot of running through gantries and pipes
there
and
was
things.
it reminded me a little bit of the sort of Poseidon adventure.
Yes,
Yeah, there was
these big pistons
yeah
and like steam tanks and
yeah,
stuff.
there was an element of
And
that.
it is this nice sort of opposite side of the the futuristic white smooth upper world
Yeah,
to this dark and grim and horrible seedy underbelly of
yeah.
this thing where there is this resistance movement who need to work on their security a bit more as well because it's not great.
No,
uh,
it's
Again, yeah, having rewatched it recently, I've forgotten how just good this film is.
it is really
It's
good.
just
Yeah,
a beautiful piece of
yeah,
cinema.
yeah. Really well made. Generally, really well sort of done, and makes you think and gives you chills like the best, films they do. I think for me, as well, there is a. I don't know. Have you seen the spin-off their TV series, Joe? Have you?
I've found them, and I will be watching them at some point. But I don't see how what it can possibly be.
Okay, well, I have seen it. So I watched this about 15 years ago. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I think there's only 13 episodes, 12 or 13. So it was short-lived, and made I think just a year after the film itself. So that the costumes are all very much the same.
Yeah.
Some of the sets are the same as well, but it actually tells you more of a story about what goes on outside. So there's different groups of people,
Okay.
surviving and there things like that. There's a couple of filler type episodes, but there's some really good ones as well. There's some
I said
sort
I
of thought
found them
provoking
all.
ones. Yeah,
I think you mentioned it on the Futurama episode, and I have found them on, I think, Dailymotion or some sketchy website that I've been looking for stuff on.
Yeah,
Not
Donald
everything is
Moffat
available
plays
everywhere.
a really good part in it.
But
So
it is on my list of things to watch.
Yeah.
It's just finding time. There's not enough hours in the day. There's too much quality content out there.
Indeed.
Sadly.
Yeah. But I actually think in their Logan's Run, we've got a good matchup with the first two. So I think it actually ties in quite well with their Dredd.
I mean, yeah, they're both dystopian futures presented as nice in a way, but with this horrible secret that they all have is that, I mean, in Logan's Run, is that you die, and in Dredd's world, it's that, you know, you can be imprisoned on your own in an iso cube for 10 years for having sugar in your house, or you know, it's a horrifying world on both. It's different kinds of fascism, I guess.
Indeed. But a great matchup, actually. Three interesting films to talk about. I'm glad for you, Joe, that you've managed to wax lyrical about your their sort of passion. Because we've been planning this for a while.
About Dredd.
Well, we've been planning this for a while, and we were like, how are we gonna do this? But we have done it. It's been great, and I think it's shown that they are the law. That's how it is. So for you, Joe, what's coming out this week? What have you dropped, as it were?
We have just done an episode for Last Orders, which is the non-Hallmark one. It's got Hallmark actors in other films, in sort of low budget, mostly monster movies and stuff, called Octopus, with the lovely and fragrant Mark from 100 Things We Learned from Cinema, who's a known menace on this podcast. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, can't get rid of him. He's a bad smell.
he's a lovely man.
He is lovely.
He needs to pace himself. Yes. And then, with it being Super Bowl season, we are doing a Hallmark film that is somehow loosely tied to American football. I haven't watched it yet because I can't. Like, I need to get these three films out of my head before I can fill it up with more silly nonsense about that. It's you know, it's every week. It's something to do. We enjoy doing. It's fun.
I admire your endeavours to watch one Hallmark film. Never mind as many as you do. So,
I mean, Christmas was a killer.
Yeah. You went all out on that one, but no, good for you.
They're already planning out this year's. Yeah.
Oh dear. Oh no, I look forward to it.
I don't want to do it again.
No, I do look forward to it, Joe. I'm sure it'll be. If it won't be fun, it will be entertaining. Let's put it that way. So, anyway, from the future, whether it be full of urban wasteland, death, or lots of saucy goings on, I will say thank you very much, Joe. Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Cult Connections. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we would love it if you left a review. Follow us on Twitter at Connections Cult for more fun, share your ideas, and maybe even be on the show. Thank you.